What's up, Leafs fans? Welcome back to another Leafs Nation After Dark. I'm Zach Phillips, and tonight we're going to be reacting to game number 56 of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Regular season as they win a sketchy one here against the Carolina Hurricanes in what was far closer than it needed to be, but regardless, you walk away from this one with a 6-3 victory. A couple goals from none other than our friend Pontus Holmberg. We get some contributions from Alex Steeves, David Kampf on the board. Austin Matthews gets himself back on the board in what was a pretty big goal for Maple Leafs history, Austin Matthews' career, all that kind of stuff. We'll break it all down. This is a presentation of Bet365, proud partner of the Leaf Station pregame and the Leaf Station After Dark. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION, NATION, code NATION, all caps, when you sign up today. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365 as well. As we return to action here tonight, coming off of what was our own Four Nations break, and we all get a chance to regroup, reset. Well, some of us did, and some of you, as I see in the chat there, Maxentius Decimus already making his name, making himself heard there in the chat. We did get to see at the Greta Bar YYZ event over the course of the break on the Saturday night there as Canada took on the United States in round robin play. And I mean, KPG showed up there as well, so pretty cool to get to meet some of you guys and get to talk to people who watched the show. It was pretty fun. Shout out to Maxentius and KPG there specifically, but yeah, back to action here tonight for us and for the Maple Leafs. And I mean, there was some sloppy play. There was some stuff that was going on that you kind of sit there and scratch your head and go, what the hell just happened? But I kind of tried to reflect on what we witnessed. And I mean, big picture before we dig into some of the individual periods and moments of time and some of the comments in the chat there, kind of just want to throw out to people and remember, like, this was a 2-week stretch of break. And yeah, I know you're professionals and I know you're at the highest level and you got to be expected to perform and all that kind of stuff. But it's one of the most commonly known things that we've all heard and known about for a very long time is that even at practice and skating, the intensity, the tempo, all that kind of stuff, it's just not the same as playing in an NHL game. It's just not, and it never will be. So when you take that much time off from game action, and I would kind of give this to everybody involved. And we saw this across the NHL today. Like, I was tuned into a bunch of different games here as well, whether it was the Oilers game earlier or if it was coming up and watching, and it was watching the Sens game that was on at the same time, or the Dallas and New Jersey game, all that kind of stuff. Everybody had sloppiness and choppy parts to the game and moments where they seemed like not all the way in it, or things were just discombobulated or disjointed, whatever it might have been. So I'll give them a little bit of a pass. Unfortunately, here you're going to go right into a back-to-back. So I don't know if this is going to work positively or negatively in terms of like rushing you back into it and being like, hey, let's see if we can get things on the right track. Or if we're going to come here tomorrow and be like, well, it was a back-to-back. What can you do? But I mean, look, you came out and you started hot. It kind of tailed off. It fell apart a little bit. The second period was fine. Both teams are kind of just in no man's land. The third period, you get out there and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, Carolina is absolutely taking it to you and just decided, hey, you know what? We're going to show up and be the Carolina Hurricanes and try to figure this one out and claw our way back, and the Leafs almost let them do it. But I will say that, like, just big picture here, 2-week period off is a long time and not something you see frequently. Like, it's really just, it's not something that goes on a lot. Even when you have the NHL All-Star break, I'm pretty sure that guys in the team, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they only get like 5-6 days. So to go from 5-6 days to legit 2 weeks without action, obviously Matthews, Marner, Nylander were playing in the tournament. You look on the other side, okay, Rantanen, Jarvis, Aho, they were playing in the tournament. But, I mean, they're the only ones. Outside of that, the other guys are kind of all sitting around waiting. So that's all. That's the last I'm going to talk about that. We'll get into the rest of the game. I just kind of wanted to set the tone of my overall thoughts on this one, because I know some people were pissed off about the way that this thing opened up and how the team closed out the game and the fact that they almost let this one slip. And, like, normally I probably would be too. And normally I would have frustrations with, not being able to tighten things up in the third period and not continuing to keep your foot on the gas and getting shots and getting chances. Because, late there as Carolina was making that push, I think there was a point where, the Leafs only had one shot on goal into that third period. And it's like, okay, yeah, obviously Carolina's going to start to carry some of the pace of play here and start to push on you. But at the same time, you can also play Leafs hockey and push it back on them and say, hey, we're going to carry the pace of play. We're going to dictate the way that this one goes. So, I'm not frustrated with this game. I'm just not. Obviously, you don't want the third period to go that way. And I feel bad for Anthony Stolarz a little bit, who I thought played really, really well tonight and gets kind of screwed for a couple of chances there. One is a Svechnikov shot that the defense and the forwards on the ice didn't rotate well enough across to, and Jake McCabe tries to block the shot, which ends up hitting his foot and taking a funny bounce that beats Anthony Stolarz there. Then the other one is a double deflection off of initial great save by Stolarz that just ends up popping back out through all the traffic out to the defense. Carolina fires that thing back through. David Kampf goes down on one knee to try to block it. It literally hits the heel of his skate, deflects up in the air to chest height. It hits the Carolina player's stick and bounces up in the air and all the way to the opposite side of the net and lands on a tee for Jaccob Slavin at the side of the net to bury that thing into the empty net past Anthony Stolarz, who had absolutely no clue where the puck was. And I don't blame him. Within the span of 2 feet, it deflected twice and went in completely different directions and then up in the air out of his line of sight down to the side of the net, and it gets buried home. Some of those are just tough. And you could look at breakdowns defensively 100%, but I thought Anthony Stolarz played himself a pretty good game here tonight. I think he should keep his head high after this one, and it's unfortunate that you look up at the clock after, and there was 3 goals that ended up going in, because this is a pretty stellar game from a guy who ends up finishing tonight's game with a .912 save percentage, made 31 saves, and just 3 goals against just feels gross. It feels not proper for the way that he played and the performance that he left out there for these guys and the chance that he gave them in the second period when Carolina made a little bit of push at the start of the second, or then going into the third and the push that they gave then. And he just stood back there strong and just kind of eliminated any opportunities for the Canes and just kind of said, no, we're going to stay on top. And then it's a couple of bad bounces late that end up past him, which I don't really blame him for. So, those are kind of just big picture thoughts, but let's get into some of the nitty gritty. And if anybody wants to call into the show here tonight, I'm going to send into the chat. So you guys can fire away. You can call in at the link that has just been sent into the show. I will pin it at the top of the chat. So if you're watching live and you want to call in and you want to give your thoughts, you click on that link, you head on over there. You don't have to come on video or anything like that. You can just call in, give your hot takes, give your thoughts. If you want to kind of wrap up what we saw from Four Nations, if you want to get mad at me about takes I had from Leafs players at Four Nations, or you want to start to look ahead to trade deadline, I'm willing to hear all of it here tonight. Obviously, preference would be to talk about this game, and I want to know, are people frustrated with the way that this thing closed out? Are we okay? Because you know what? At the end of the day, it was 2 weeks off, and at the end of the day, everyone's going to be rusty, and some stuff was going to happen where, hey, you know what? Maybe you can't control some of these things. Or are people furious? I want to know. 6 1/3 there in the chat says, hi, Zack. I missed you. 6 1/3 missed you as well, and I missed everyone else in the chat over the last couple of weeks. That is something that, just on a side note, before we continue on and get into, actual important things that happen in the game, that is something that I always forget about, and I'm lucky now, lucky now at least to do the sheet with Jeff and get to talk to a lot of people and a lot of you guys from the Leafs chat and the Leafs show who end up showing up over there. Daily Face-Off, Monday to Friday, live 3 p.m. Eastern time every single week, Monday to Friday, yet again. There you go. You can find me over there, Jeff, and some amazing guests that we have coming on the show. But when we don't do Leaf stuff, or I don't do Leaf stuff, it's I feel lost a little bit. Like, we're not connected to the Leafs Nation and everybody in the chat, and I'm talking about what's going on and riding the highs and getting way too low, and we shouldn't be that low up all together and going through it here and there. Obviously glad to be able to get to see some people out at the Greta Bar YYZ event, and as we'll get to a little bit later in the show, and we'll allude to maybe some more opportunities to see some people in the future. But yeah, call-in length is there in the chat if anybody wants to give their thoughts on tonight's game. I saw Gordon Graham was popping around earlier. If Gord wants to call in tonight, we can get another edition of Gord's Corner. I think that would be an absolute blast. So, Gord, if you're out there and you want to call in as well, you let me know, and we'll sort that out. I can get a link sent over to you. Actually, it probably should just be the same link that has been used every other time, but regardless, we'll keep it going. On top of that, one more quick community note, housekeeping note. For those of you who may have forgotten how this works, or if you're new to the channel here and you're just coming back after these 2 weeks and you're like, oh, what is this Leafs channel? Well, this is the Leafs Nation After Dark. We're breaking it down after every single Leafs game. I'm not the only person on this channel. You can find other amazing people in Jay Rosehill, Carter Hutton, Nick Alberga, right here, breaking everything down, talking about Leafs games and the Leafs overall season here on the channel. They're in the mornings, Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Amazing guests. I don't know if people missed, and I don't know how you could have missed. Friday, Daryl Sittler was on. Before that, they had Ryan Getzlaff and Chris Pronger and guys talking about the Four Nations tournament, all that kind of stuff, hopping through the show with those boys. Like, they're just doing amazing stuff here on the channel. Right here on the After Dark show, we break things down immediately after, take calls from the chat, all that kind of stuff. You don't want to miss it, so make sure to subscribe to Leafs Nation 401. And a final note, we do have a charity partner this season, a super chat charity partner, and that would be our friends over at Sick Kids. If you want to send in, or you want to get a question or a comment featured on the show, you can send in a super chat right here in the live chat there, and it does go to Sick Kids. The Sick Kids super chat this season, we have an amazing partner. And it's something that's going to an amazing cause. We've had some huge nights here on the show where we've raised $200, $250, $300 just on post-game shows alone of people sending in stuff, whether it's just because you want to support the cause, you want to get a question or a comment in, all that kind of stuff. Make sure to send those over. You got to be in the live chat there. You select the amount you want to send, you put your message, you fire it off, and I'll try to answer all of those on the show throughout the course of the night here as well. Smash the like button. Every 50 likes that we get, we do smelling salts. That's enough housekeeping. I wanted to do some stuff there because it's been a little bit, and as much as I may be rusty or the Leafs may be rusty, there's people in the chat who might be rusty as well and forget how this goes. So let's get into it here, and I will kind of try to read the chat here, and we'll go along with what you guys are talking about and bounce back and forth, and maybe you guys disagree, or maybe you guys want some stuff pointed out that I wasn't talking about yet, but one that I do see a bunch of people in there already, and Mike Batson saying it. Steeves collecting that NHL cash. Yes, he is, and very, very deservingly so. What a performance from Alex Steeves here tonight. Here tonight. I mean, this guy, which, by the way, I thought it was shocking to find out that Alex Steeves leads the Marlies all-time in goals scored with 98. I don't know why I thought it would be much higher, but 98 goals leads the Marlies all time seemed shockingly low. I figured at some point somebody in there would have even broken the 100 mark for the team, but apparently not. So Steve's all-time leader there. He's been very, very good this season. He has got a handful of opportunities with the Leafs over the past couple of seasons, but he's never really stuck, right? And I talked about it in the pregame show, which hopefully everybody's watching anyways, but he's a guy who's kind of just stepped up and not really grasped the way Bobby McMahon did when he jumped up and joined the team. And it's not a knock on Steeves. He was fine. He just didn't kind of blow you away and say, hey, that guy brings something that we don't have, or that guy brings something that we need here. And I mean, Bobby was very close even last year to kind of being back out of this lineup. And then it was a surprise, or I don't know, shocking, I don't know what you want to say, last minute illness for John Tavares that held him out of a game. Bobby McMahon gets in, he buries a hat trick against Pittsburgh, I think it was, and that pretty much just catapults Bobby McMahon's career. But before then, he even kind of started to make this steps in the right direction where it was like, hey, maybe we've got something in this guy. Steeves hadn't really done that through the 10 games that he had played. It was always kind of like jumped up. Oh, he was fine, but then he goes out. He looks okay. He fits in. Okay, and then he's out. This is the first game that I've seen of Alex Steeves joining this Leafs roster and the big boys on this club and kind of looking like he was more than just fine out there. Like this appearance from Alex Steeves, he actually looked like he was making a difference every time he stepped out on the ice, right? And it doesn't have to be a difference like he's a guy who's creating crazy chances like Matthews, Marner, Nylander, but he was a guy who was kind of wreaking a little bit of havoc. You know, I noticed early on, and I texted one of his old teammates during it, and I was talking to him about what he was doing, and he's like, yeah, I think this is a guy that the Leafs could get some use out of because of the impact that he has on the game. And it was like, early on, both goals that were scored when the fourth line was out there, whether it was Steve's first NHL goal, which congratulations to him, by the way, or it was the goal by David Kampf, which was basically set up by Steeves there and then set up by an unbelievable pass by Steven Lorentz. But both of those started with Steeves getting in hard on the forecheck and winning the puck back, which, yes, it's great to see a guy getting on the board with the goal, with the assist, putting up the 2 points, as it was pointed out here tonight as well. All the games Ryan Reeves has played this year, he's got 2 points. Alex Steeves had 2 points in his first 7 minutes in his first game with the team, which, I mean, it's just adding insult to injury to Ryan Reeves, who didn't play here tonight, and they gave Steeves a shot. But, I mean, it's jumping in and making an impact down below the goal line, which, yeah, obviously Reeves, Lorentz, Kampf, they can play a heavier game, but adding on and being able to play an offensive game, kind of in my mind, which maybe it's not the exact right comparison, but is, as the word I saw used in the chat by 6 1/3, McMahonian. Right? Bobby McMahon gets in hard down on the forecheck. He wins battles. He gets the puck back. And then when it comes to him in the slot, he's able to score. He's not going to score 50 goals in a season, but maybe he can put up 15, 20 if he played over the course of an 82-game schedule. If you start to look at that, that gives you depth opportunities. It gives you depth contributions. It allows some of these guys in the bottom six to create a little bit more and be relied upon to score a little bit more. And then maybe if you're looking out there, if you're a Craig Berube, it's not solely a shutdown line. And maybe it puts the other team back on their heels a little bit where it's like, hey, we're going fourth line versus fourth line here. This whole thing is not going to be spent in the neutral zone or killing this thing off in the defensive zone. But maybe we actually go down there and spend some time in the offensive zone, because when that puck gets flipped into the corner and it's Alex Steeves going after and chasing it, he's going to win that puck back. He's going to get down there in a hurry. He's going to get down there with some physicality and some pressure. He's going to get the puck back, and then he's going to find a way to get the puck out front, or he's going to get himself to an open spot out front. You look at that goal that he scored there. It's him down below the goal line, finding a way to win a battle and get that puck loose and getting the Leafs possession. He goes to go for a change, and he quickly recognizes, hey, there's an opening here on the ice. I've got a little bit of free space. We've still got the puck. Let me be an option quickly before I just jet off the ice. As he opens back up, puck comes across to him, buries that thing for his first NHL goal. It's good recognition. It's a good offensive mind, which you've seen him do at the AHL level. He's lighting it up there offensively, but it's also doing other things that impact the game in a positive way for this Leafs team, and specifically down in your bottom six. Winning those forechecking battles, playing physical, not losing battles, those are net positives for this team as a whole, and you got to respect that contribution from a guy like Alex Steeves. Steeves is a visionary, Samuel David Murray there says in the chat, who I think might be Samurai, unless I'm wrong, unless he changed things up. But I thought that might be Samurai in the chat there. And speaking of that, we do have a couple of super chats. I'll continue to answer some of your questions in the chat there. And as well, if anybody does want to call into the show, you are more than welcome to. You just hit that link pinned at the top of the live chat. You call in, you can give me your thoughts, you can ask questions, you can give me hot takes, whatever it may be. But we've got a couple of super chats here. And as I mentioned, proceeds going to Sick Kids. There you go. New animation, new sounds, new music, all that kind of stuff. I try to amp some things up. I don't know if people noticed as well in the opening sequence. We've got new music to lead us in. A little bit more like, I don't know, hip hop, I guess, vibe. Where we change the sick kids super chat sound, make it a little bit quicker, faster, get into it sooner. So we've got a couple here. So let's start with the first one. Robert Smith just sent $5. I know Robert sends pretty much every single show, and obviously proceeds going to sick kids. Pretty awesome of him to do there, so thank you, Robert, for that. And then our friend Samuel David Murray also says here, for the kids. Also, hi, Zack. Nice to have you back. Nice to be back and appreciate the super chat. But there you go. There's a couple of super chats from those of you in the chat there. Thank you, guys. Obviously appreciate the super chats, but even more so appreciate you hitting that like button. So keep liking the stream, keep subscribing. I got a question here from Earl Fan. Earl has asked it a few times here now already within the first 20 minutes of the show, and I did not answer because I feel like it's a bigger picture conversation, but whatever, we got to answer this one. And then I got a question there from producer Vic, which is also a bigger question, so might as well kind of tag team these ones and do them in tandem. First of all, Earl Fan, hey Zach, you think this Leafs team is a contender or pretender? Well, Earl, the honest answer right now, contender or pretender, I think that there is some serious concerns with this group that we have not seen fully adjusted to or cleaned up or answered from years past that still carry over. There are questions about the top six, specifically the big boys, showing up every night. We've seen times where they've fallen asleep. There's injury issues when it comes to a guy like Austin Matthews here this season. Mitch Marner seems to have answered a lot of people's critiques, which I'm not going to dig into, but he seems to have answered a lot of people's critiques about can he show up in the big game. He had an incredible finals for Canada there in the Four Nations. So there are some things that have gone in the right direction, but we did also see basically like a 2.5 month stretch out of this Leafs team where they pretty much just went right back to the Maple Leafs of last year. And it was a massive, massive concern for myself. There was a lot of people here in the chat who would come and get mad after the game and be like, why are you upset they won games? Yeah, they did in some spots, but they didn't deserve to in a lot of them. And they kind of just relied upon skill and not playing the right way to get them there. And if you're going to do that, and if you're going to rely on that style of play, you're not going to have success when it comes to the playoffs, which is a concern, which makes me feel like you go down the route of pretender more than you do contender. If they play more Berube style of hockey and they find a way to kind of intertwine Berube hockey and Leafs offensive hockey, then yeah, you're much more in line with a contender than you are a pretender. The other thing that I would add to this to kind of juice up the whole contender narrative and the whole contender conversation is you saw it here tonight. Anthony Stolarz, 31 saves on 34 shots and .912 save percentage. He walks away from this thing with 3 goals against and 3 goals that I kind of feel bad that he let in. As I said earlier, some bad bounces, just a couple that beat him in some funky ways, some that he had no chance on, some that didn't deserve to go in, at least by Anthony Stolarz being in the right spot and being in the right position and kind of playing these things the right way, but it was just beating him because of a bad deflection or something that bounced out to the side and someone got open, was left uncovered or whatever it may have been. So you're getting goaltending from a guy like Anthony Stolarz, and you're getting that in tandem with Joseph Woll. Right now, I feel like no matter who goes in the net, whether it's Woll or Stolarz, I feel pretty comfortable between the two. I feel pretty comfortable with the pair that you've got, no matter who it is on a nightly basis, and that's not something I've been able to say about these guys for a long time. Now, mind you, I do have some concerns about the ability for them to stay healthy, which I don't want to go into, and knock on wood in this one that they've gotten this out of the way. And Joseph Woll's injury at the beginning of the year to start things off was the only time we'll see that out of him. And Anthony Stolar's recent injury, which he's kind of just coming back from here, was the only time we'll see that out of him. And now if you can get health out of the two of them the rest of the way, this is the best goaltending tandem that we've had of the Maple Leafs in who knows how long. Like honestly, I'm not even speaking in hyperbole when I say like early 2000s is probably the best goaltending, the last time you've seen goaltending like this for this Leafs team. Like, that's not even a joke, which is kind of sad to say, kind of scary at the same time. But when you look at the goaltending that you're getting, you look at the defensive group that you've built here, the majority of it, and then you kind of tie that in with this coaching and the style of play that they want to operate. Yeah, you're much more in line with building yourself a contender, a real contender for the first time in a very long time. Cons to this, Morgan Rielly not playing very well. He's kind of struggled. I talked about in the pregame that he went into the break there on a little bit of a high. Probably the wrong time for him to do so because you maybe break that momentum, but I was kind of hoping, hey, you know what? He goes in, maybe he can clear his mind and not have this dark cloud wing over him that, you know what, I haven't played well. Now I got 2 weeks off and I got to go back and find it. But, you know, tonight was not like the greatest night out of him. Hopefully he can kind of clean things up and move forward tomorrow. I don't think he was terrible tonight by any stretch, but not what he was before they went on the break. And then the power play, I mean, it's still a concern for me. They looked a little bit better process-wise tonight, but I think even some of that, my idea of what they did on the power play is a little bit tainted by the fact that the second unit was very good. Like, the second unit was the ones that were creating some of the high danger chances. There was a couple by the Leafs first unit, but it wasn't really consistent. And then when the second unit went out there, it was like they were the ones who were stepping up. They were the ones who were making things happen. So power play in the playoffs is 100% something that I am concerned about and need to see them do, like getting themselves to the right spots power play wise, because it falls off in the playoffs year in and year out. And if your power play and your special teams kind of fucks off when it matters the most, you're going to be in a dark spot. We got another super chat here. We'll answer this super chat first, and then I want to answer Producer Vic's question, who fired one off a little bit earlier, and I said I would get to it, and I will get to it. Tammy went through an After Dark withdrawal during Four Nations. Good to see you back, Zach. The Leafs Nation show is the best around. Tammy, thank you. I appreciate that. I thank you for the support here on the show, whether it's the After Dark or the morning show. We see Tammy buzzing around there all the time, and Tammy, missed you as well. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to talk to everyone in the chat, and thank you for the super chat there. Tammy, let's answer Vic's question, because it got brought up during intermission, and I started thinking about it right away, and I was like, I wonder if maybe that GM that would look to unite the Shen brothers would be Brad Treliving. And then I went to Twitter, and it looked like a lot of other people had the same idea. And then Vic here in the chat comes in early tonight and says, we're going to see the Shen brothers in Toronto tomorrow. Is it going to be closer to the deadline? What? So, the one thing that concerns me, which I do think that Brad Treliving would be the type of guy who would attempt to get them together. I do think he would. The one thing that concerns me is Brad Treliving has not necessarily been the type of guy who has gone nuts at the deadline. So I would say if that you don't get to it sooner, it probably isn't happening later. I could be wrong, and maybe that trend gets kicked here at the deadline, and we're doing a group, Rosie, Nick, myself jumping on and talking about the trade deadline and talking about having the Shen brothers here and everything like that. And we're like, wow, I can't believe we've got a real contender here at this point. But I will say this. First of all, I'm all for it. I would love to have both of them here. Second of all, I don't know how the hell you managed to get Braden Shen here, because there is money attached to that deal. You're also bringing in Luke Shen's money attached to that deal. So you're going to bring in both of those guys. And Braden Shen is still a pretty good player. So you're going to have some assets going out the other way. And those assets, like, to the people who sit here and say, oh, just get rid of that guy, that guy, that guy. Like, no, they're not taking Ryan Reeves and David Kampf and Connor Dewar for the sake of it. They're going to take some players back. They might take some roster players back. And don't throw Nick Robertson at me here in this, because Nick Robertson is probably not the ask. Let's be realistic here, ladies and gentlemen. They're probably going to look for something a little bit more serious coming back the other way, and probably some type of hockey trade involved in that, which means not picks, not money, not that kind of stuff, but players. I don't know who those players would be, because it's not dumping off guys and dumping off the players that we look around and say, we don't want that guy. That's not the type of trade I envision happening if the Schenn brothers do get brought here. Luke, a little bit of a different story, and it's no knock on him as a player or anything. I just think that where he's at in his career, what his contract is, makes it a little bit different, and maybe where Nashville is makes it a bit different. But I think when you look at a team like St. Louis, and you look at Brayden Schenn, I think the dynamics of that trade change a lot. Like, I think they change drastically, to be honest with you. Yeah, Vic says Pontus. I don't know if Pontus is the kind of guy they're looking at the other way, but I mean, if he continues to scoring like this, yeah, then maybe they look at Pontus and say, hey, we could use a guy like that in our bottom six centers and our bottom six forwards. I don't know. Did jump up there on the second line left wing tonight, and Barry's too, thanks to one unbelievably unselfish play by William Nylander as well, might I add. Like, that play, unbelievable hustle, wins the battle out at the blue line, gets it out, gets out past center ice, gets across, and I'm like, obviously Nylander is scoring this thing, and then he fires a pass across to our friend Pontus, who ends up bearing his second of the season. He hadn't scored in 18 games leading up to that first one, which, I mean, he didn't really score himself. It was kind of a sloppy, like, Matthews also shoots at glove side on Kochetkov, and it ends up on his blocker side, the rebound there, which Kochetkov gives me Samsonov vibes. I don't know, like, I don't watch him as much. I have games on all the time, so like tonight I was watching 3 games here at the same time and kind of bouncing around looking at everything while obviously watching the Leafs on the main screen. So I'm watching Kochetkov here and there and watch kind of recaps and all that stuff. This guy gives me major Samsonov vibes. Major Samsonov vibes. Sometimes maybe the best goalie in the world, and sometimes out to goddamn lunch. And it's like, if you're a Carolina fan, I can't imagine you're very comfortable with your goaltending situation. Let's just put it that way, because the way that you see these guys, Freddie Anderson, all of a sudden just injured, he can't play. Obviously, I know there's a period of time there where he was dealing with something a little more serious, and I hope that he gets that all sorted out, and, you know, the health is the best. His health gets back to being the best that it can possibly be, but, I mean, we all know and have seen here, Freddie Anderson is the kind of guy that can all of a sudden out of nowhere end up with some type of injury that's holding him out for a long period of time, and you're sitting there like, what? And he's gone in one of the most important times of the year or whatever it may be. And I mean, if you're a Canes fan, you've experienced it over the last little while. Now you're watching Pyotr Kochetkov being a guy who's kind of like in and out mentally, I guess maybe is the best way to put it, which is a whole other concern on its own. So I don't know. I mean, we're not doing a Hurricanes post-game show, but I did kind of want to just throw that out there, that he does very much give me, gives me Samsonov vibes, and I can't imagine people in Carolina are very comforted by that statement, because, you know, Sammy could be a very good goalie at times, but consistency wasn't always his game. It just wasn't. Continuing on here with what else we got in the chat. I appreciate everyone else who's buzzing. The other thing I want to point out, yeah, Willie's in the Rocket race. Yeah, I mean, I thought that maybe Willie was going to fire that thing just to try to catch up to Draisaitl there. It ends up not, and I mean, unfortunate. Well, I know one of my friends is going to be pretty upset with the fact that one didn't, with the fact that he didn't shoot that one, because he's got some decent money on William Nylander to win the Rocket. AK says 88 will get more goals than 34 this season. I don't even think that that's really a hot take at this point. Like, he's already up there at the top. It would kind of, I think Willie already went through his like sleeping stage as well, right? I think Willie went through his period where he kind of fell asleep and that was it. He was gone, he was out, and now he's kind of back. You know, he's good for one of those a season where it just disappears. I think that we're not going to see a lull like that from him again. I really would not be surprised if we see Nylander kind of ramp things up here down the stretch going into the playoffs and start being the guy again who's burying very frequently. The other thing, too, pointing out as we approach the deadline is Yarncroc is a playoff ghost. I'd rather have the cap space. Diz K says, I don't know. The one thing with Yarncroc that I kind of at least give him some credit for is that he's being the guy for Sheldon Keefe that often gets thrown up into the lineup and he's like, go play top six. And I don't think he's a top six player. So I think he kind of gets put out of position or put out of place where he's trying to play into a spot that he just doesn't fit in, and then he sticks out poorly, and then the production's not there because he's playing in the top six, but he's not a top six player, so he probably can't keep up with the pace of play or can't keep up skill-wise, or just the scoring's not that level. I think he could be a guy who just is able to be effective in a bottom six role on a consistent basis, but we've never really got to see him slotted there consistently. I feel like now with the way you're seeing the lineup shake out and with kind of the way they're structuring things, maybe they decide Yarncroc is a guy that just goes into the bottom. And Patrick G. Mafia there says Yarncroc has to be traded. He has cap to move. He's only $2.1 million. Like, he's not a guy who's ripping up your cap space here. He makes $700,000 more than Ryan Reeves. Yarncroc is not the guy to me that I'm looking at and saying, get him the hell out of here. Yeah, his point production's not crazy, but he can score 15 to 20. And if he could start to contribute a little bit kind of with some goals here and there, maybe he's a guy who alleviates some of that pressure as you go to the deadline and look at who do we need and where do we need them. I also talked to someone who's really smart in the hockey world in terms of scouting and stuff, and I'm like, am I nuts for thinking that maybe Calle Yarncroc could be a good addition coming back to the team? He's like, no, and I think he could be a guy who could fit in at third line center, which if he can do that, and then you can look at adding wingers and you can look at adding to your fourth line, I think you're probably in a much better position because it feels like the center market this year might be really expensive. So, obviously, I don't think it's the greatest solution. Like, let me just be honest about that. But I do think he could fit back in here and maybe alleviate some pressure. I don't think he's a guy who has to be moved, and I don't think that his cap space really is, like, absolutely rinsing you here. But, yeah, it's just I'm interested to see if he can come back. Yeah, and Shinobi7 says, Kyle is a Swiss Army knife. You can put him anywhere. And I agree, and I think he can kind of fit into like a second unit power play. He could probably fit into a third line role there. But like Patrick G, trade Yarncroc now is ideal. We need a stud like Cousins. You're not getting Cousins during the season. I like that. We need to come to grips with that. You might have a better chance here at getting Mikko Rantanen to join this team because of the fact that you could get some retention on him if you flip back some big pieces to Carolina if they're looking to trade him. And he could come here at a cap hit of like 2.3 million, I think it is, if they get another retention on him from Carolina or from a third-party team. But you're going to have to give up a bunch to get a player like Mikko Rantanen with extra retention on it. Like, let's also remember that. But the reason you'd be able to get that is because you could get the retention because he's a UFA at the end of the season. A guy like Dylan Cousins is going to be much harder to kind of swing for that. But if you're looking to take a swing and you're looking to get yourself an opportunity to get down to Nashville the perfect opportunity is coming back. I mean, I'm going to get two birds stoned at once here. I think that's probably the best term to use. I mean, obviously, you guys know the Nation Vacation, March 20th to 23rd, is coming up down in Nashville. We are a month away here from the trip of a lifetime. Flight packages, non-flight packages, hotels, tickets to the Leafs-Preds game as well, a live podcast. If he's not traded to Leafs by then, maybe Luke Shen is showing up and joining the boys in person for that live podcast. Jay Rosehill, Nick Alberga, Carter Hutton, the boys will be down there in Nashville, taking in the game, taking in the sights, taking in some country music, and heading on over to Love and Exile Wine Bar as well. So make sure to check that out over on nationgear.ca. Whether you're looking for flight packages, non-flight packages, we've got it all. And on top of that, if you guys are looking for a chance to head down there and you're looking for a chance to go there for free, we've got a massive event coming up. We did it for the first one on Saturday for Canada, USA. We ran it back on Thursday. It was a little bit of a last-minute one there, obviously, for the finals. But we're going to be heading back to Greta Bar YYZ yet again. March 8th over at Greta Bar. We have flight nights from the Nation Vacation presented by Fountain Tire over at Greta Bar YYZ. We're going to have an opportunity to get you guys down to Nashville. March 8th at Greta Bar YYZ, we watch Toronto take on Colorado, and you get your shot on an unforgettable Nation Vacation to Nashville. One lucky winner and their guests will travel with the TLN crew and fellow Nation Vacationers to Nashville, Tennessee from March 20th to 23rd. The grand prize, ladies and gentlemen, this is right, the grand prize includes round-trip airfare from Toronto to Nashville, Tennessee with Air Canada, bus transportation to and from the airport, a 3-night stay at the 4.5-star Waymore's Guest House and Casual Club, and Friday, March 21st, exclusive bar event at Love and Exile Wine Bar featuring a live podcast recording and special surprise guests. I mean, I already told you who one of those might be, but maybe many more popping in as well. Group tickets to watch Toronto take on Nashville at Bridgestone Arena. You must have a valid passport that is not expiring within 6 months of travel. You must be 21 plus to enter. See full rules at nationgear.ca. How to win? Purchase a ticket, you're automatically entered into the raffle draw. Purchase more raffle tickets to support one broken biker and to be entered again. Additional entries are $20 each. General admission for the event is $10. A VIP admission is $40. Includes a Greta burger, beverage, and a game card. Make sure to head on over there. Greta is an awesome venue. I've been twice there in the last week. If it wasn't for the fact that we've got a double header here on the show, possibly would have found myself ending up at Greta here tonight. But, you know, much like the boys on the Leafs who are going to be resting up, I'm going to be resting up myself here tonight, not making my way over to Greta. I don't know. Nick might be out tonight. Maybe he's going to find himself over at Greta. Who knows? You never know who you'll see at Greta. But make sure to head on over there. And, yes, your opportunity of a lifetime heading down to Nashville for the Nation Vacation, a trip you do not want to miss. Let's see if the video works. Look at that. Producer Vic, what do you think about that one? How professional is that? The video works. We're not sitting out here for 10 minutes trying to figure out what the hell's going on as we try to get some animations up on the screen. But there you go. Video works like that. See, you know what? I went through everything here on the back end, you know, the same software Vic's using. I said, Vic seems to make it work. How can I? Changed up the super chat, changed up the intro music, and found a way to get ourselves cleaned up here for the Nation Vacation ad slot. And I'm not going to lie, I did the pregame show, and it did not work. I had to edit everything after the fact. It was no bueno. But regardless, we're back in action. We got everything rocking. Production quality, we are up here, Diz-K. We got the production quality back. Last time I will remind people here, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel, Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. We're going to get to a caller here in a second. We'll get some thoughts on tonight's game, the break that we just saw occur, maybe some thoughts as we head into the NHL trade deadline coming up on March 7th. And as we get to our first caller here, there's one thing that we have to do. It is probably the most important thing that we could ever do before we get to this caller every single time they join us here on the show. So with that, and I'm sure you guys know where I'm heading on this one, let's play the animation.
Okay, are you ready? Let's go! Don't go changing. Do it your way, go down blazing. Don't go changing. Do it your way, go down blazing. Sugar and spice, everything nice. Have a little class and do it right. I gotta say the way I feel. That's right. Buttercup, this is serious stuff. I love Benny. Go. I don't get enough time in this show. I love the people.
Hey, Benny, I'm going online here for
Good to see you. Good to see you. Lovely to look at and delightful to see. Love the hat. A wise guy, eh? You look good, really. You look good. Don't go changing. Do it your way. Go down blazing. Don't go changing. Do it your way. Go down blazing. Doing that one for the old grapes. Go down blazing.
What better way to come back from the Four Nations vacation, or Four Nations break? It's a vacation as well, I guess, for myself, for everyone in the chat, than with the man, the myth, the legend himself. Gord, how are you, brother? It's been a while.
Ohio gozaimasu.
Ohio gozaimasu, Gord. How are you today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Good to see you guys again. Good to see see in the chat.
Good to see you as well.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been. How you feeling here after this one tonight, Gord?
It's kind of a mixed bag. You know, it's kind of hard to get a gauge on that game. The way Carolina was just so out of sync in the first period, and
yeah.
So it was really hard to get a kind of gauge on the game, and then, you know, that kind of 3-4 minute, 5 minute collapse there in the third. Kind of a scattered game. I thought, you know, Stolar's played well. I thought there was a lot of good things, but there's still, you can see there's some holes still in their lineup, right? Particularly Domi, Robertson, Riley. Those three places in particular are noticeable, I think. Other than that, you know, it's hard to gauge. Let's wait for this week to play out and see what the team looks like. But I certainly believe that they're going to have to they're going to have to make some changes. But to be honest with you, Zack, I really don't want to give up either of the two kids. And that's probably a likelihood if they're going to get anybody any good. Yeah. But I still think, who's any good? Is that worth gambling the future? I mean, we've already given so much of the future away. So I'm for hanging on to the kids and giving up a draft pick to get a lesser type of guy, like we talked before, of like a guy like Evans on Montreal. Could we manage to pry a guy like Evans from Montreal for, you know, not giving up those two kids? I don't know. Anyway, that was a lot for you to unpack there. You want to run with that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, we can do that, and we'll get into that. And I mean, I'm going to kind of touch on what you just said, and I'm going to parlay that over with what we've got for our first super chat, or for another super chat here that just got sent over. It says third super chat on a live stream here from Cameron Huffman. So let's get to that. And it's to your point, and we'll kind of dig into it a little bit more as we go forward here. But let's go to the super chat. So Cameron Huffman here says, hey, Leafs, with a massive super chat, by the way. It's not often that I kind of shout out the amounts here, and I'm not trying to say like, oh, look at how much this person gave, whatever, but $50 super chat from Cameron Huffman. Greatly appreciated. So thank you, Cameron, for sending that one in. We appreciate it. You want to run those up. I mean, remember, we're flashing it every time up there, but proceeds go to sick kids. So awesome cause that we've got here on the show. So thank you for sending those in. You keep them coming. You want to get your question or your comment in. You got a question for me. You got a question question from Gord, all the way from Japan, Ohio Gazayam. You can send those in, and we will answer them here as well. But Gord, Cameron Huffman here says, hey, Leafs kind of let up in the third, but how about the bottom six showing up? Love it, big time. I mean, I kind of want to unpack that a little bit because we talked about it, right? Steeves comes in here, he scores, David Kampf scores, and it comes off of an unbelievable play. First of all, it's Steeves getting in and winning a battle on the forecheck. It's him protecting the puck and making a nice little slip pass to Lorentz, who protects that puck, corrals it, brings it over to his forehand, has the patience and the wherewithal to drop that thing back to David Kampf as he brought Jaccob all the way across the net and brought him out of play, and then he drops it back, and Kampf basically just fires that thing into an empty net. That's production from your bottom six, and specifically from your fourth line. They haven't gotten a long time here, Gord. I see these guys jump in here into this lineup, and I see a guy like Steeves bring that injection of life, and we're watching Bobby McMahon, and he's kind of fitting, whether it's on the second line left wing or if it's down into the third line left wing. Doesn't matter where he's playing, he's creating offense. He's kind of a guy who's driving things, whether it's with his energy, physicality, or if he's capitalizing on opportunities from Nylander and Tavares with them. It doesn't matter. We're seeing a little bit more there in the bottom six. You just talked about it. Rather than maybe going out and getting a big guy, you're looking elsewhere. I mean, how are you looking to change this? Because to me, that implies you're going to be looking to make some changes to the bottom six. Do you look at guys like Calle Yarncroke coming back and a guy like Steve stepping up into the lineup and say, hey, maybe that's much more in the right direction, and we tinker and add some smaller pieces? Do you try to change things? Are you looking to kind of retool the way the bottom six is constructed here? Like, what are your thoughts on that overall? And Cameron pointing out, you get some production from the bottom six. It happened tonight, but it hasn't been something we've seen consistently throughout this season here.
Yeah, I really like the look of that bottom six with Steeves on there. Like Steeves, what really impressed me was that his goal, he went in there and just bottled he got it. The guy had the step on him on the boards. He bottled the guy up in the boards. He pushed the puck over, and he was at the end of his shift there. He pushed the puck over. He battled that out at the end of the shift, and he won that board battle, pushed it over to Tavares, slipped into a slot, and got a great shot off it. It's funny that the last Marlies highlights I looked at, I saw him score a goal exactly like that. And he was talking about, this year, learning how to get into those spaces where he can get shots off more. So that was impressive. If he could, add a little bit of more scoring touch on that fourth line, because he can play heavy. You could see on that play where he got in there on that puck, on that heavy defenseman, won that board battle. So he can add maybe a little bit of more scoring on that bottom line. I like that, rather than, Dewar, who's a hustler and stuff, but maybe doesn't have the touch that Steeves has. So that's a great, if he can step up and maintain that, then that's a great addition there to the Leafs. So then you're looking at basically that third line center role, and like I said, it's going to cost you the kids to go out and get anybody substantial, or at least one of them. But I'd rather be looking at a guy like Evans, who's basically a fourth liner, but could play up on the third line and could be a little bit more defensively responsible than a Domi. You know what I'm saying? I think Evans is a defensive specialist, and I think I mentioned this last time I was on, long time ago, that Evans is primarily a defensive style forward. He's scoring, I think, probably at his highest clip he's ever scored this season.
Yeah, I think career year right now, yeah.
Yeah, but he's primarily a defensive guy, and he's a plus on minus Montreal club, on a very weak defensive Montreal club. He's a plus player, and he's going up against top lines on the other team in a shutdown role. So you got to, I've been keeping my eye on that Evans guy, and he's a really heck of a skater, heck of a great hockey IQ, and a Toronto guy. So I'd be hoping that they would try and look for, maybe moving a pick and a player. Maybe I think long ago that you were kind of like, you were not big on Robertson, and I'm saying give the kid runway, give the kid some runway. He hasn't really had a chance, and I've seen enough of him. I love his shot, I love his hustle, I love everything else, but he's far too light, and he loses too many puck battles on the board.
Yeah.
He gets pushed off the puck too often. He's got a little bit of that Jaccob thing with it. What's his name? Ray Ferraro described as looks like he's being chased by bees. You know, it looks like he's being chased by bees. He's just skating like 100 miles an hour all over the place, but never seems to get anything done with all that effort. So I want to see the kid succeed, and I like to give the kid some runway, but I think they need somewhere heavier on that line. They really need someone heavier on that line. So I think that's where they got to go. That, and still for the playoffs to go four rounds, you're going to need more depth on D. And I know they're pretty good with Myers stepped up. He's done well this year, especially defensively, physical hockey. But, you know, 4 series, that's a battle, and there's going to be injuries. So maybe a depth piece on D, and look to fill that third role center slot. But I don't know. I'm just so sick of giving up the future, giving up the farm, giving up the future, giving up the farm, and then getting bounced in the first or second round. And
I know.
Then you look at look back and you go, wow, what do we got? You know.
I know. I look. There's a couple things you said there that I want to unpack. First of all, on Robertson, I've obviously those watching you right now, Gord, you know, everyone else has kind of always known where I've stood on Robertson. It's not just me. You've seen it whether you watch the morning show and you hear Nick and Rosie talk about it, or if those guys come on here. We've had conversation with Hutz about it. Like, it's kind of been a theme that we've brought up here. The one thing I want to point out, and I just want to give him the credit he deserves on this point, is that he has started to evolve his game a little bit in terms of like adding some other areas. This is the first season that we've seen him do it. He's been a little bit more reliable defensively. You see him finishing checks. He's involved in that play. He's getting involved physically. So I want to give him credit there. And the other thing on top of this, which I will never take away from him, and I want to give him the credit for on top, is he's balls to the wall every time he goes out in the ice. So credit to him. Like, I've got no issue with his effort. I've got no issue with his hustle, his buy-in, anything like that. But to your point, Gord, first of all, as much as he could try to play that physical game and finish checks and stuff, he's light. And we see him lose battles a lot of times. So that's one thing that I look at. I'm kind of like, okay, you know, if you're playing that physical brand and you're bringing something, or if you're trying to play the physical brand, but you're light, but you bring something else, like you score, then maybe I can excuse it and kind of say, hey, you know what? You're trying to do that, but you're scoring here and there. You're creating offense here and there. He's just not, and he doesn't do it consistently, and it's been the one thing we've heard everybody has always fought me on specifically. I know about it. They always fight with me. It's like, oh, he's going to score. It's going to break through. You got to give him a chance. We're here at this point. He hasn't scored. I respect the hell out of the fact that he showed up and he's given the effort that he has. You can clearly see he's trying every single night, and he is playing with a little bit more bite to him. He goes out and finishes checks, but it's just not there. And I think it might work for him elsewhere, and I think he might be able to find it if he's relied upon to play a different role. But he's just not going to be that guy, I don't think, here in Toronto because of where he fits into the lineup. And I just, it's not even like, he doesn't work here. It's just, you probably need someone, like you said, Gord, the word was heavier. You probably just need someone heavier to play his position. And if the guy does the exact same thing, but he's heavier, and like when he hits a guy, the other guy falls over once or twice, and it's not him falling over every time, maybe that just makes you feel a little bit better. And maybe it changes the momentum of something, or it provides a little bit more to the Leafs. Like, I know that sounds stupid, and it's Neanderthal brain, and it's caveman hockey, but it's the reality of the situation. I think a lot of people would feel a little bit differently if that was a guy that was in that position. I don't know. I just wanted to give him the credit because he has gone, be busting his balls out there, but production not there. When you're looking from the bottom 6 on a consistent basis, still not there.
Yeah, you can't slag the guy on effort. I mean, every single shift, everything, all out, no question about that. A great skill, great shot. I mean, but he's a guy who's got to play in the top six somewhere, get a lot of ice, play with the disher, someone where he can get that shot off. I honestly believe he can be a 30-goal scorer in this league. His shot is so elite, and he gets it off so well, and he gets himself. He just doesn't really. He doesn't slot into this lineup unless you're going to put him in the top. And who are you going to replace? You're going to replace McMahon or Nyes. Those guys are doing the grunt work on those top two lines, right? So you're not going to get that. You're not going to, and there's only so much puck to go around on that first line with Matthews anyway, right? You got I don't know. There's no real slot for him on this club, and I really. Like I said, I really like the guy. I was pulling for the guy. I wanted to see him get some runway, and I thought like this is a guy who could score 30 in this league. I still believe it. But I don't know if it's with Toronto. That's all.
Yeah, I just don't think it is with Toronto, and I don't think he's going to get that opportunity in the top six. I look at McMahon, I look at Nyes. They're always going to be ahead of him on the left wing side, and then what do you tell me? He's going to pass not Matthews. He's going to pass Marner and Nylander on the right. Not happening. So, I mean, his spot in the top six isn't happening here. Maybe it happens elsewhere, but I just don't think it's going to be here. So, I think that's probably enough on that, Gord. I mean, you look at this game here tonight, it's obviously a little bit choppier. Coming back from this Four Nations break, I brought it up at the top of the show, like, 2 weeks off is a long time, and it's a lot longer than what you usually have. The last time they did this was in 2014, so a lot of these guys weren't even playing back then at that point. You did the World Cup of Hockey. That was before the season even started, and then every year that they have the All-Star, I think it's only like 5 days off that they get, 6 days off maybe. So it's like you get a couple periods during the season where there's mandated breaks. This is the first one where it's packed into one. It's going to have natural rust coming out of it. So it's kind of hard to evaluate this game completely. But I mean, Gord, what are your takeaways from tonight against Carolina and what we saw out of these guys, what we saw out of some individual players? Is there anyone who stood out to you? Like, what were your thoughts out of tonight's game?
Yeah, like I said, I thought Steeves stood out. I thought that whole fourth line really played well right throughout the game. They played well all the way throughout. I don't know. The first period was like I said, it's hard to gauge because Carolina was so bad in the first. I mean, did you see the one where the goalie almost coughed up that one? And not even the goalie, but the defender there just looked right out of it. Like they just looked out of it tonight. They had like a 3-on-1 there at one time that they botched and didn't even get a shot on net. They weren't clicking on passes. There were lots of open space for the Leafs to utilize. So it was kind of hard to get a gauge on the game. I mean, the Leafs pretty much controlled the game all the way up until that little 5 minute space where it just got out of hand there. But yeah, hard to gauge, really hard to gauge. Like I said, we're gonna have to wait until a few games in. Like, look, what did the Rangers got blown out? They gave up 8 or something.
Oilers got blown
Buffalo
out too,
tonight. Buffalo lost to Anaheim. Ottawa, who was playing well, they got beat by Montreal.
Yeah,
and it looked like a kind of overall just a sloppy night all over. Edmonton and Philly beat them, and there were some. Did you see any highlights from the Edmonton game? Did you see Bouchard with like 2 brutal giveaways?
Yeah, if people were wondering why Evan Bouchard wasn't on Team Canada, if you couldn't tell from watching the Four Nations and how tight things were defensively, if that wasn't the first clue, then maybe tuning into the Flyers-Oilers game today would have been at least been the second tip-off that you could have taken away and went, oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, guess what? He's not running the first power play, and when you look at a guy like Thomas Harley, or you're looking around at you're maybe bringing Petro or Drew Doughty or Shea Theodore or there's a ton of other options. Morrissey, yeah, Thomas Harley. Yeah, there's a clear reason Bouchard wasn't on that team.
Makar is the first guy out on the PP, and Morrissey's right next. He like Morrissey. He was a revelation for me. I don't see him enough in Winnipeg. That guy was outstanding.
Yeah.
Him and Slavin for the States. Oh my goodness, that guy was insane.
Unbelievable.
Slavin. Oh my goodness, there's a guy I'd love to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, tonight's game, it's really hard to gauge. It was great. It was a great first period, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And Stolarz looked good. He was seeing pucks through traffic. He was moving well, which is good, bodes well for, going down the stretch here. Looks like whatever that little thing that was bothering him is he's over that. So that's great news. That was great to see. So yeah, I like it going forward, but they're gonna have to still make a deal. Like I like, Pacioretty in the lineup makes a difference. He plays heavy. He's playing heavy this year, that's for sure. How healthy can he be, though? Can he stay healthy? It sounds to me like he's having, I don't know, groin issues or back issues or something, right? That he's tweaking, which is old guy stuff, right? He's getting that. He's starting to hit that old guy wall where those little niggling, the groin things. Like, man, 82 game season is.
Yeah. It hits a lot harder.
I don't think people who, the casual fans who watch hockey understand how grueling a pro hockey schedule is, how absolutely grueling. I mean, they're top of the line athletes and whatnot, but man, oh man, night after night after night after night. And it ain't pickup, beer league hockey. It's full on contact and it's full on,
Yeah.
It's a grind, man. It's a grind. And when you get to that age, it's, that recovery time for your body, you need longer and you're going to end up getting tweaked. So if he could stay healthy, he would make a huge difference. We're talking about, that third line needs to be heavier instead of Robertson. Imagine, just a healthy Pacioretty in there who could still maintain that physical game. That's going to be that, that could be a huge difference right there. But they definitely need to get like I said, a guy like Evans, and then some depth guy some depth D guy, that they can get give up a third round pick or something for.
Gord, I'm going to ask you one last thing here. You were around for much more of this stuff than I was. And I say that with all due respect, obviously here, but, Austin Matthews scores here tonight and launches himself into second all-time, tied with Daryl Sittler, in the Leafs record books for goals scored for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, I just reading here one of the people from the Leafs community on Twitter, someone who I follow and read a lot of their stuff. It's pretty funny on Twitter, at FrizzBob. He tweeted, Matt Sundin scored 420 goals in 1,346 games as a Maple Leaf. At his current pace, if Austin Matthews plays 1,346 games, he will have 870 goals. That's a pretty astonishing number. It's a pretty crazy way to kind of, encapsulate how how that works and where your things are at, and just putting it into perspective. Like producer Vic pointed out earlier, he tied Daryl Sittler's record for goals as a Maple Leaf. He's 27 years old. We've got a few more years left on his current contract already. You can imagine he's going to continue on, and hopefully, he stays here in Toronto for the remainder of his career. But if he can be healthy, he can play in a lot of games, and he can be here for a while. It feels like he's just going to shatter Maple Leafs records for goals scored, points, all that kind of stuff in a Leafs uniform. Can you speak a little bit to what it means to see that kind of stuff here tonight, Gord, and see Matthews get himself up there, climb the ranks, tie a guy like Daryl Sittler, making his way towards a guy who even I got to watch and was my favorite player growing up in Matt Sundin?
Yeah, and he's doing it in the big goalie era too. So, I remember I grew up in the 60s and 70s where goalies wore street hockey pads and were 5'9", and all you could see was net. And defense couldn't skate like they can now, right? Of course, it's all relative. Guys also had, big, huge hockey sticks that weighed 10 pounds too, right? So that was a whole different era as well. But yeah, doing it in this era is something else. Doing it in this era, and he was just something. Like right off the bat, that 4-goal game, just getting him I mean, it was a thrill as a Leafs fan. As a Leafs fan, getting the first overall pick in a year where there was a generational player.
Yeah.
It was just an absolute thrill. And then he comes out his first year, absolutely outstanding. Like they haven't had the playoff success, but I mean, people got to realize the NHL is notable for its parity, and every team is good. It's not like the era the Montreal Canadiens were dominating. It was like the Montreal Canadiens and the Bruins were good, and that was about it. It was a walk in the park most of the time. It was just like Montreal would every playoff series they'd have one tough opponent because one team would have have a good year and they would be the formidable opponent or whatever. But most of the time they just cruised to the playoffs. They were just so stacked.
Yeah.
So much better than everyone else. But now everyone's good. Everyone's good. And it's so much harder now, I think, to win in the playoffs than it was in the past. I mean, at least for teams like Montreal, maybe not for Toronto, not since '67 anyway. I remember, Cup, believe it, I'm that old. I remember being thrilled watching the Leafs winning Stanley Cup against Montreal. How good is that? But he absolutely. And he's going to get it. He's going to find his groove, man. The Leafs are going to break through. I'm really, really confident of winning at least a round this year. I think with our goaltending, I think we got to tweak it though. I'm optimistic. I'm a fan. I'm optimistic. I know it's hard to be optimistic as a Leaf fan with so much history of just losing and losing and losing and losing. Trust me, I know. And I know that there's better teams in the NHL than the Leafs. That said, I mean, Edmonton, they got holes. Is their goaltending great? I don't know. Skinner's iffy, right?
Yeah.
Their D is iffy. I mean, McDavid
feels like this is the most
Draisaitl.
parity we've seen kind of throughout the league here right now. Like there's not one team that I look at and say that's the team that it has it all figured out. That's the team that's got it all together. And maybe that's just because there's so many teams in the league and there's so many players and rosters get spread thin, or I don't know, but this kind of feels like the first year where it's a little bit more open. I mean, you look at maybe we're underestimating some teams. Maybe that's part of the problem here right now. But I mean, I look at last year and look at the Florida Panthers, and I kind of felt like the whole season Florida's just got it. Like that they got it. They're going to be able to figure this out. Or, the previous years where you looked at Tampa and said, hey, that's a team that's probably going to compete and could wrap this thing up. Colorado, the year they won it. I mean, it's not like we all looked at it and said they're winning it for sure, but you could put them as the front runner and it felt pretty comfortable to have them out there leading as the pace car for maybe not points, but just the style of hockey they played. And this year, it feels like there's times where everyone falls asleep. Maybe it's the nature of the schedule being so condensed, but Gord, I kind of agree with you there. It feels like it's a little bit more open all the way across the board.
Yeah, and since the Leafs had gone out and locked up their top players, and everybody, bitched and moaned about how, you can't put whatever percentage of the cap onto only 4 players and blah, blah, blah. And now the other players, top players, are starting to come up to their contract years and they're wanting to get paid. And you're seeing Colorado having to dump guys like Rantanen, and you're seeing Boston start shedding guys left, right, and center because they can't afford to pay them. And now you're seeing all the other teams are starting to come to that same position that the Leafs were in. You either pay your players or you lose them, kind of thing, right? So, and if you pay your players now, you only got so much left in the kitty to flesh out the rest of your club, which is why you're seeing more and more parity in the league, right? So maybe the Leafs are just, unfortunately, Dubas put them kind of ahead of the curve on that, overpaying your top stars. But I mean, I like their top 4 guys, to be honest with you. I like it a lot. So, and I like that they held on to them. Maybe they paid them a little more than they should have, but I like that they've locked them up. So top 4 guys. And even Riley, when he was first signed to that contract, I thought, oh, that's good. 7.5, that's pretty solid because he's not a number one guy, but he's a solid player. But yeah, unfortunately, he's dropped off. He's dropped off considerably, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because we need that QB on the back end, and we just don't have it. That's one thing we lack.
All right, Gord.
And we're not going to get that. We're not going to get that at the trade deadline. I mean, we're not going to get that. That's for sure.
No.
So we got to get something else. But yeah, okay. Well, thanks for having me. It's been a while, so I got a lot in. Blah 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 as usual.
I appreciate it.
Maybe I'll wait another 3 months to call again and save it all up again. So, but anyway, it's good to see you. Good to see all the familiar names in the chat.
Yes, and, as always.
Go Leafs, go.
Yeah, I appreciate it calling in, Gord. Obviously, we've tried to get you on here a couple of times, but I know you're a busy guy, so we understand it. We appreciate it. Hopefully, everything's going well with work and life out there in Japan. So, but thank you for calling in, as always, and hopefully next time it's not as long.
All right. Take care. See ya, Chad.
Thanks, Gord, for calling in. We appreciate it, as always. All right, so let's get out here and wrap up on a couple of things, but before we do, quickly, I just want to reiterate how absolutely nuts this is, right? Austin Matthews there with that empty net goal ties Daryl Sittler for second all-time in Leafs goal-scoring leaders. And as pointed out by Frizzbob on Twitter, Matt Sundin scored 420 goals in 1,346 games as a Maple Leaf. At his current pace, if Austin Matthews plays 1,346 games, he'll have 847 goals. Obviously, barring injury and making sure he stays healthy and stays here with the Maple Leafs throughout that entire tenure. But that is an outrageous stat to kind of even start to wrap your head around. At 27 years old, 9 years into his career here in Toronto, he is second all-time on the goal-scoring leaders. This is one of the most historic franchises in all of hockey, in all of sports. And he is rapidly climbing the leaderboards here. And at some point, we're going to kind of just have to appreciate what the hell he has put together, the body of work and the goal scoring that he's been able to do here in the Maple Leafs uniform. We have never seen this. We have never had a player like this playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I mean, if you want to even move outside of that and your knock on this team or your knock on Matthews is going to be, oh, well, maybe Sundin or Daryl Sittler wasn't the goal scorer that we should prop them up to be. And oh, who cares if they pass them? Well, how about this? Alexander Ovechkin has played 1,466 games in the NHL. In that period of time, he has scored 879 goals and is currently pursuing the record set by Wayne Gretzky. If you just even take that and his numbers of where he is at, 1,466 games, 879 goals in his career. And I mean, we're getting ridiculous here because we're just putting projections out there and you never know what kind of off or on seasons Matthews could have. And maybe you could do some revisionist history about years where Ovechkin played, and that's all fair and that's all fine. And I have no issue with that. But 1,466 games played and 879 goals from Alex Ovechkin. And then you think back to that tweet from Frizzbob and you think about the projection of where Matthews would be at 1346, 1,346 games played, and he would be at 870 goals compared to Ovechkin at 1,466 and his current 879. And that's not to diminish anything Ovechkin's done. And obviously we have to take this with a grain of salt because these are projections and Matthews has suffered injuries throughout his career. And these are things where it's held him out of games or it's diminished or took away from his ability to impact a game and score at the rate that he has. But just to see those numbers and know where he would be projected out to be is absolutely mental. And I feel like there are times where we as Leafs fans get wrapped up in this vortex, and understandably so, because for Leafs fans, I mean, I've never seen a Stanley Cup. The way I celebrated after winning the first round against the Tampa Bay Lightning for the first time was like we basically made it to the Cup Finals at that point in time. So we're desperate to see some type of playoff success. So you know what? These goals and these kinds of things, they get swept under the rug and we forget about it and we don't care about it that much. But if you take a step back and you look big picture and the careers and the accolades that are accrued by these players here in Maple Leafs uniforms, yeah, the ultimate goal is the Stanley Cup. And I obviously know that is what you're looking for. And these kinds of things are just, okay, who cares? Did you win the big one? Can you win the Stanley Cup? And right now, they have not even sniffed that. They've won one playoff series in the entire time. But to watch a player like Auston Matthews, who's currently the captain of this team, putting together this just career of goal scoring that he has already in his 9th season with this team, he's going to pass Matt Sundin in a Maple Leafs uniform. He's going to be number one. It's just a matter of how far does he get? How high does he climb the leaderboard? How much ahead of everybody else can he put himself? It's unbelievable to watch, and it's something that we should appreciate for the time being because holy shit, who knows when the next player like this comes along. Not just for the Maple Leafs, but, guys like this in the NHL. It took from Gretzky to get to Ovi, which is a long enough period of time. And luckily enough for us as Leafs fans, we got to see it with Auston Matthews, but he didn't come along into the league until 12 years after Alex Ovechkin. So, you watch those things and it's just like, it doesn't come along every day. And is Auston Matthews Alex Ovechkin? No. But he's at least up there in the conversation of goal scoring with a guy like that right now. And I mean, kudos to Auston Matthews for the goal scoring. And I just wanted to appreciate that and appreciate the player he is and the career he's put together for this Leafs team. Shout out to Auston Matthews for another goal here tonight and tying Daryl Sittler. Alex Steeves on the board, a couple of points. Pontus Holmberg gets 2 goals here as well. Let's just do this because Mario Kart is asking for it, and he's asked for it every time. We might as well see what it was. I didn't even check it this one, but we might as well do this quickly here. Leafs win 6-3 against the Carolina Hurricanes, and Mario Kart, the deserve to win a meter. Guess what? We are, in fact, in favor of the Toronto Maple Leafs here tonight. Yes, Mario Kart. They did it. They got it done. They won on the scoreboard, and ladies and gentlemen, they also won the deserve to win a meter. So, I mean, you head on over there to Money Puck. That's where I go to check this one out. I don't know if other people have other spots, but 52.9% in favor of the Toronto Maple Leafs here tonight. What a way to go about this one. What a way to open things up after the Four Nations break. There you go. There is the deserve to win a meter. Okay, let's clean this thing up here. Let's get out of here with our final couple of things. So let's start with this one. Let's go to our best bet. We're not going to spend too much time on it. Unfortunately, here tonight, this one does not go the way that I was hoping for it to. Our best bet segment is brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Leaf Station pregame and Leaf Station after dark. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N. That's code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N, all caps. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, best bet here tonight did end up losing, unfortunately, and our best bet was Max Domi anytime goal. We were like this close to getting that one too. He had the one play in the third period. He had a break. About 7-8 minutes left in the third. Jaccob comes out to play the puck. Domi almost gets it by him and into the empty net and just can't do it. That one would have cashed us plus 900. Look, I know you guys are sitting here going, why the hell are you betting on Max Domi to score? Well, you know what? At plus 900, we're taking a swing on the guy. He's destined to score at some point, so I thought plus 900 would have been the optimal time to take a swing and take a shot on Domi scoring. $20 would have profited 180, but unfortunately it doesn't. We lose that one, and we currently do sit on the season at up 6.75 units, a 21-38 record on the year here so far through 59 bets given out on the show. We've only won 21 of them, but we are profiting $675. We are one more like away from doing the smelling salts here as well as we just wrap up our best bet segment. Now, let's get to our play of the game. Decided not to change up the play of the game one, but I did clean the ending up on the play of the game. I don't know if you guys noticed that there. The intro plays, it's a little bit quicker, then bang, flash out of there. There's a little glitch sound, all that's, it's good stuff. We're trying. We're trying some new things. But our play of the game here tonight is going to be the David Kampf goal. I would love to give it to the Steeves one. That's going to be an honorable mention for me. It's just not going to be my play of the game here tonight. I'm giving it to the goal scored by David Kampf because Steeves was still involved in that one. Gets in on the forecheck, wins the initial battle. He gets the puck over down into the slot area there, just off to the side. He protects it with his back. He makes a nice play as he dishes it to Lawrence, who's coming down through the middle, right downhill in the slot area, protects that thing over to his forehand, drags Kachekov all the way across with him, and then dishes it back to David Kampf, who puts that thing into basically an empty net. Everyone knew that was a disgusting play by Steven Lawrence, but it was also a disgusting play by Alex Steeves to lead with that one. My honorable mention here tonight is obviously Alex Steeves' first goal in the NHL. Look, it starts with him being late in a shift, getting down, as Gord kind of talked about. He gets down hard on the forecheck. He wins the net. Let me just start this again. I mean, mumbling all over the place, and Alex Steeves deserves better than that. Alex Steeves deserves a lot of credit for that, and I want to give him an honorable mention for that play tonight because he's late in the shift. You see that you've got JT coming out there. The second line is making a change at that point and is starting to get out on the ice. The rest of your line is going off. Alex Steeves jumps down into the forecheck, helps get the puck back for the Leafs there, turns around, and as he's heading to the bench and saying, I got to get off and get out of here with the rest of my line, he has the recognition to realize we've still got the puck. I'm in a soft spot in the zone. No one here outside of, our own players recognizes that I'm in this spot, that I'm open like this. He posts up. He opens up to the puck. He makes it aware that, hey, I know you could pass me the puck. I'm aware that I'm in a soft spot. I'm ready to receive this thing. Puck comes across. He takes a shot, scores his first goal as an NHL player. Look, this is a guy who's been lighting it up in the AHL all season. He's gotten some chances with the Leafs. He's never really grasped it. This could be his coming out party. I don't think this is a guy who jumps in here and he scores every game down the rest of the way and jumps onto this fourth line and all of a sudden they're the most dangerous fourth line in the NHL. I don't think that at all. But I think that he could be a guy who competes for a fourth line spot, maybe pushes out Reeves and Dewar and makes it life harder for guys like Nick Robertson and Max Domi and even puts some pressure on people like David Kampf over there because he jumps in here and makes some internal competition in the bottom six. He's been an unbelievable guy, unbelievable offensive player in the AHL. He currently holds the Marley scoring record down there. Gets his opportunity here with the Maple Leafs tonight, gets up with some practices with them, fits into this lineup tonight, and makes his presence felt right away. He scores his first NHL goal. He gets on the board with another assist, which was a great heads-up play by him. He showcased his forechecking abilities. He showcased his physicality. Like, this guy looked good all over the ice, and he was able to capitalize on some points. Kudos to Alex Steeves for showing up the way he did here tonight and getting on the board, showing that he could impact the game in other ways as well, but good on him for making the most of his opportunity here tonight as well. Shout out to Stolars for the game that he played here tonight too. 912 save percentage, 31 saves on 34 shots. He did not deserve those 3 goals going in. I mean, there were some breakdowns that happened, some bad, slow, sloppy rotations in the D zone. Guys ending up out there for far too long as well. That kind of led to some of those breakdowns. So just some sloppy stuff that, obviously hope the team can clean up. But they kind of sewered Stolars on some of those. I thought he was unbelievable. But A good night from your goaltender, held you in it. Otherwise, pretty good game from the boys. Just couldn't close this thing out in the third period, or couldn't clean it up in the third period is the better way to say it. All right, we did hit 50 likes here on the stream. Before we get to our grades, we got one final thing to do. Thank you guys so much for liking the stream, subscribing, watching the channel. If you haven't already, do so before you leave. This is the final thing we got to do on the show here tonight before we wrap this one up. 50 likes, that means you do the Smalling Salts. I got new bottles. I've got some for Nick and Vic. I don't know how I didn't give it to these guys. I saw them twice over the last week, and I didn't give it to them. And I got Nick texting me here right now. He's thinking he might be celebrating this Leafs win. I don't know if this guy's ever heard of a back-to-back, but, there's Leafs play tomorrow too as well, Alberga. Anyways, thanks for liking the stream. Appreciate it. There's the 50. There you go. You know what it compares to, the Smelling Salts, in my opinion? At least this bottle. It's like jumping into a freshly chlorined public pool. It's like, and then you know when you like jump in and you go in awkwardly and the water shoots up your nose or something? That's what it feels like to get that. Let's get out of here with our grade of the game. I want to know what you guys have in the chat. Keep hitting that like button. Keep subscribing here to the channel. Appreciate you guys. Those are the Smelling Salts here. Let's get to your grades. I want to know what you guys have. My grade of the game here tonight is simple. Okay? You got great goaltending. You jumped out to an early lead. You started on time. You got depth scoring from your bottom six, which is not something that you've normally gotten. Unfortunately, the power play was not clicking here tonight, which is okay, and they just didn't score. You go 0 for 2. I thought that there was times there where the power play did look more dangerous. There were times where they were getting the puck towards the front of the net, which is just this simple, stupid stuff that we talk about all the time, but they were doing it, Put the puck towards the front of the net. Nylander, a nice little pass down to Nyes, who's got his stick on the ice right there on top of the crease. Unfortunately, he's just a little too far to the right. If he's maybe a step over to the left, which not really his fault, he's kind of getting boxed out in that position, maybe it goes in. But some of that stuff, the second unit looked a little bit dangerous on the power play. You flip over to your penalty kill, they go 2 for 2 tonight. And one of the funny things, I was watching the penalty kill tonight, and I'm like, you know what? The penalty kill for the Leafs, especially in that second penalty kill that they had, they were making life difficult on Carolina to enter the zone like opposing penalty kills do to our power play. They were breaking everything up at the blue line. They were turning them around. Anytime they got within the blue line to the top of the circles, it was broken up, disrupted, flipped back out into the neutral zone, and forced to turn around and regroup. Good effort by the penalty kill. It was an okay effort by the power play. You didn't score. You didn't capitalize. But I thought some of the chances and the opportunities created were there. You jumped out to the early lead. Sloppy third period there, just from the perspective of you didn't have pedal to the metal, and Carolina kind of started to tilt the ice back on you. Ends up scoring 3 goals and making this game way, way, way tighter than it needed to be, making it 4-3. You finally get it to 5-3, and then you get it to 6-3. But depth contributions, our guy Pontus gets on the board a couple of times there. Matthews scores, ties Sittler. Steeves comes up. He scores his first NHL goal. There's a lot of good storylines to this one. And even though Stoller's let in 3, finishes with a .912 save percentage. So kudos to him for another solid night as well. If you clean this thing up and you don't have that end of the third period, I probably walk away from this one and say, hey, you know what? We're closer to the A's, but based on everything that I just outlined there and everything that I just said for how this game played out, my grade tonight is a B+. If this contextually was before the break or, in some point in December or January, I probably don't give it that grade. It's probably lower. But you come back, there's rust, you figure it out. You just had guys playing at the tournament, it's the highest level on Thursday night as well. You had guys off for 2 weeks. There was a lot of opportunity to have a clunky, weird game, and you didn't make it. You didn't let it be just as messy as it could have been. You get a win here tonight against Carolina. Now you got another one tomorrow against Chicago. B+ is my final grade. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in here tonight. That'll do it for me as I wrap this one up. And, we talked about things that were coming up here on the show and on the channel. We'll obviously do some trade deadline coverage here as part of the Leafs Nation. But if you're looking for more trade deadline coverage. DFO trade deadline special will be happening. Mark your calendars because you do not want to miss the most exciting day of the NHL season. The Daily Faceoff trade deadline special is coming your way March 7th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time, and the DFO live team is going to be live breaking down every single move as it happens. Instant reaction, expert analysis, and all the behind-the-scenes drama, the biggest trades and news around the league. Plus, there will be special guests lined up throughout the show to give you exclusive insights from some of the biggest names in the game. From the blockbuster deals to the surprise moves, they'll be covering it all. So what are you waiting for? Tune in to Daily Faceoff's YouTube channel and follow Daily Faceoff on socials on March 7th. Let's break down the biggest trade deadline day in hockey. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much to everyone who watched here tonight. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel. We will be back tomorrow for another pregame video and another Leafs Nation After Dark. Thank you all for watching. This being game number 56 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season, defeating the Carolina Hurricanes 6-3 tonight. That'll do it for us. See you guys tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Until then, keep believing. For more content just like this, including game previews, post-game live shows, Leafs Morning Take Monday through Friday with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with special guests, as well as instant reaction videos, make sure to be subscribed here to the Leafs Nation YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, and drop a like.